Vladimir Putin shows no signs of backing down from his risky strategic moves and geopolitical pressure games targeting the Baltic states. Operational and military dynamics in the region have shifted at an astonishing pace in recent days. The electronic warfare systems Russia has activated along its borderline are playing an extremely dangerous game that directly threatens airspace security in the area. On June 8th, an unmanned aerial vehicle that lost its navigation systems and deviated from its course entered Latvian airspace. Immediately afterward, French Rafale jets on duty as part of NATO's Baltic air policing mission scrambled rapidly. The Dassault Rafales quickly detected this unresponsive foreign asset in Latvian skies and engaged it with pinpoint accuracy. This firm and uncompromising response became the final straw in the escalating tensions that have been building across the Baltic region for weeks. Yet Latvia's military command is fully aware that border security cannot be left solely to Allied jets or luck. Because relying only on air assets to defend long land borders is one of the most fundamental rules of modern warfare doctrine, especially when high-readiness Russian military positions capable of launching an assault at any moment sit directly across the Latvia-Russia border. That is precisely why Latvia has been building a flawless strategic defense infrastructure along its borderline for a very long time. The name of this project, constructed against Russian tanks, armored personnel carriers, and motorized infantry units, is the Dragon's Teeth defense line. In reality, this move is a jointly coordinated defense line also adopted by Estonia and Lithuania. However, the Riga government has been one of the actors taking the most striking steps on this issue in recent days. The first physical installation of this impenetrable line was successfully completed at the end of May through the intense efforts of military engineers. So how will this defense barrier prevent Russia from entering Latvia by land in the event of an alarm? The dragon's teeth that the Latvian army has placed along the borderline are recognized as one of the harshest and most merciless anti-tank obstacles on the modern battlefield. The system basically consists of pyramid-shaped, high-density concrete blocks reinforced internally with steel rebar. These blocks are not ordinary construction concrete. They are a special military-grade mixture engineered to withstand freezing Baltic cold, severe weather conditions, and direct artillery blasts. This 5-year project, allocated a budget of €303 million, delivers infrastructure that pushes the boundaries of military engineering. Each concrete block weighs approximately 1.5 tons and is positioned at a specific angle into the ground using heavy cranes. This immense weight and geometric design make it impossible for Russian main battle tanks to push these obstacles aside or crush them under their tracks upon impact. The blocks are laid in approximately 10-meter-wide strips along the border in an asymmetrical 3-row formation. The gaps between them are calculated to the millimeter, so that even a massive tank or fast armored infantry vehicle cannot maneuver through them. The core philosophy of this defense line is not to completely destroy enemy armored vehicles, but to reduce their terrifying forward momentum on the battlefield to zero. When a rapidly advancing Russian armored vehicle attempts to climb over these concrete pyramids, its tracks immediately lose contact with the ground and traction vanishes. These concrete pyramids create a lever effect that exposes the vehicle's weakest point, usually the underbelly with little or no armor protection. A 50-ton war machine with spinning tracks and zero mobility instantly turns into a stationary and helpless pile of metal. At that exact moment, Latvian anti-tank teams waiting kilometers back, kamikaze drones, and artillery assets gain a perfect firing window. Moreover, these dragon's teeth are not left alone in the field. They are supported by deep anti-tank ditches dug immediately behind them, designed to swallow tracked vehicles. These physical obstacles work in integration with state-of-the-art sensor-equipped minefields and thermal camera networks that turn night into day. Russian armored convoys will be forced to stop, call forward heavy engineering vehicles, and spend hours clearing mines to breach these barriers. This mandatory delay will cause fuel trucks and ammunition carriers following the convoy to pile up at the same choke point. These areas, known in military literature as kill zones, are where defending forces can destroy the highest number of enemy elements with the least effort. Furthermore, when the Baltic region's mud season arrives, Russian tanks attempting to bypass the dragon's teeth by heading into the forests will become directly stuck in the swamps. So which specific Russian military threats along Latvia's eastern line will this wall cover? The most urgent and destructive threat is the Pskov garrison. located only 30 to 50 kilometers from the Latvian border and standing by for assault orders at any moment. Pskov hosts one of Russia's most elite, aggressive, and rapidly mobilizable units, the 76th Air Assault Division. This division is specially trained for lightning-speed ground assaults, seizing border crossings, and breaking through enemy lines. If the Russian command decides to enter Latvian territory overnight, the first elements to move will likely be the light armored mechanized units departing from Pskov. These units, aiming to seize asphalt roads in a rapid raid and push into Latvia's interior, will slam hard into the dragon's teeth right at the zero line. The critical elements of any assault, surprise and shock effect, will completely melt away against the cold surface of these concrete pyramids in the first minutes. The second major strategic threat comes from the Ostrov helicopter base, located 50 to 70 kilometers from the Latvian border. Modern attack helicopters operating from Ostrov are tasked with providing air cover and close fire support to ground elements during border crossings. Because of the dragon's teeth, Russian tanks that cannot advance and end up bunching up at the border will force these helicopters to remain airborne longer over risky areas to protect the immobilized convoys. These helicopters hovering over stationary convoys will become excellent targets for Latvian infantry, shoulder-fired heat-seeking air defense missiles. Especially at the Sebej and Zalupe crossing points, considered the weakest sectors of the border, these concrete barriers positioned directly opposite block logistical support routes from the very first meter. A massive Russian convoy along the borderline will become trapped between dragon's teeth, directional mines, and artillery fire, descending into major panic. The ultimate effect the Latvian army seeks here is not to single-handedly confront tanks and repel the entire Russian army or advance all the way to Moscow. The real goal is to make Russia's planned, quick occupation strategy impossible in the very first hours of the operation. Because every extra hour the enemy spends helpless at the border is priceless time gained for heavily armed NATO reinforcement forces to reach the region. However, Latvian military thinking knows very well that a modern war cannot be won with static concrete defense lines, trenches, and deep ditches alone. The recent airspace violation has clearly shown that today's threats are not limited to steel tracks coming from the ground. The sky, invisible radio frequencies, digital signals, and electronic warfare waves have become battle spaces just as active and dangerous as the land border. For this reason, the Riga administration has begun taking far more sophisticated and technological military steps that will complement the dragon's teeth and seal the airspace. The Latvian army has deployed specially equipped mobile drone countermeasure teams along the Russia and Belarus border lines. These elite teams patrol the border continuously on unpredictable routes using highly mobile tactical armored vehicles. The vehicles carry high-frequency signal-jamming weapons produced by local defense industry and fast interceptor drones that lock onto enemy assets. Any foreign unmanned aerial vehicle attempting to infiltrate from the air, conduct reconnaissance, or alter its route via electronic warfare is neutralized the moment it enters the operational area of these mobile teams. This system directly prevents static dragon's teeth barriers from being scouted by enemy drones or used for target designation by Russian artillery batteries. At the same time, Latvia is rapidly renewing its own command and control networks against the enemy's signal jamming and spoofed coordinate capabilities. Russia's advanced electronic warfare systems frequently used along the border aim to blind GPS satellites and tactical communication networks. In response, Latvian military units are being equipped with frequency-hopping encrypted radios and inertial navigation systems that operate completely independently of satellites. Thus, even if Russian electronic attacks reach their highest levels, Latvian units will never lose communication among themselves, command chains, or target sharing. One of Riga's biggest assets in its internal defense dynamic is the National Guard, known as the Volunteer Defense Forces. These tens of thousands of volunteers, who know their own forests, towns, and hidden paths like the back of their hand, take up ambush positions behind the dragon's teeth line. Supported by the regular army's advanced weapons, these local elements receive special training to continuously harass Russian logistical lines trapped at the border using asymmetric warfare tactics. Alongside all these national efforts, the most deterrent pillar of Latvia's comprehensive defense concept is undoubtedly NATO integration and allied firepower. The Adazi military base in Latvia is being massively expanded with a huge budget to bring the Canada-led NATO Enhanced Forward Presence Multinational Brigade to full operational capacity. More than 2,000 elite NATO personnel stationed at this enormous base train shoulder to shoulder with Latvia's local forces in integrated ground assault scenarios. Spanish, Italian, and Canadian armored elements have memorized Latvian geography down to every inch and know exactly which coordinates they will occupy in a crisis. In other words, a Russian mechanized convoy slowed down after getting caught on the Dragon's Teeth will have to face not only Latvian anti-tank weapons, but also NATO's heavy and modern firepower directly. The latest infrastructure and modernization work at Lielvārde Air Base forms the solid sky shield of this integrated land defense chain. French Rafale or Eurofighter Typhoon jets, stationed here as part of NATO's Baltic air policing mission, provide uninterrupted air cover to ground units. The recently downed Russian-origin drone was the clearest proof of how incredibly the reaction time of this integrated air radar network and allied jets has reached. Latvia's military evolution is clearly visible not only in defensive tactics, but also in the acquisition of high-precision strike systems. HIMARS multiple launch rocket systems, advanced air defense batteries, and coastal defense missiles are being rapidly integrated into the country's military inventory. When Dragon's Teeth stop an armored unit at the border, HIMARS systems hidden in forests kilometers back will strike these targets with pinpoint accuracy and displace within seconds. This shoot-and-scoot tactic, the cornerstone of modern artillery, makes it almost impossible for Russian counter-battery radars to locate Latvian guns. On the other hand, all these defense steps taken against Russia are not limited to Latvian territory alone, because Estonia and Lithuania, just like Latvia, have intensified their defense activities against possible Russian invasion moves. The primary focus of these two countries is the Baltic defense line, which Latvia has recently taken the lead on. This unprecedented project aims to draw an uninterrupted, unbreakable, and enormous military barrier stretching from the cold waters of the Baltic Sea all the way down to the southern Belarus border. Due to its different geography, Estonia has adopted a more technology-focused and aggressive defense concept that makes maximum use of water obstacles. Estonia's eastern border is largely protected by major natural barriers, such as Lake Peipus and the deep, fast-flowing Narva River, extremely difficult for armored vehicles to cross. Although the lake surface freezes completely in winter and previously created a vulnerability that heavy tanks could cross, every millimeter is now monitored with today's sensor technology. Estonian military thinking, seeking to exploit this natural geographic advantage to the maximum, is equipping river and lake crossing points with 600 high-technology concrete bunkers. Each of these bunkers is a resistance fortress, equipped with supplies, anti-tank ammunition, and digital communication gear that can sustain combat for days in complete isolation from the outside world. Especially the Narva crossing, the most critical, dangerous, and narrow choke point, where Russia could enter Estonia from the north with heavy armored vehicles. To completely close this strategic land link vulnerability, the Estonian army has installed massive retractable steel barriers and Dragon's Teeth on the famous Friendship Bridge over the Narva. Any Russian mechanized element attempting a surprise nighttime raid across the bridge will slam into these thick steel walls that lock in seconds and become trapped on the bridge. The concrete bunkers placed immediately behind the borderline are designed so Estonian infantry can safely fire anti-tank missiles at enemy armored vehicles while protected from heavy artillery shrapnel. The interiors of the bunkers are integrated with thermal periscopes, secure radio networks, and operational digital screens that can directly control unmanned aerial vehicles in the sky. Estonia's most notable border strategy is keeping mines or heavy wire obstacles in hidden storage areas along the border, instead of laying them on roads during peacetime, so as not to disrupt daily trade. In the event of a war alarm or intelligence warning, Estonian defense units have the logistical capacity to transport these pre-positioned hundreds of tons of obstacles using heavy cranes and lay them at the zero line within minutes. Now to the southernmost end of the region, that is, the Lithuania front. When we look at this strategic area, it is very clear that Lithuania is the country completing its defense line in the most aggressive, highest budget, and fastest manner among the three Baltic states. Lithuania's defense line architecture is based on a double-sided encirclement risk, the Belarus threat from the east and the heavily ballistic missile-armed Russian Kaliningrad region from the west. The Lithuanian army has already completed Dragon's Teeth installation around the highly vulnerable Suwalki Corridor, considered Europe's most fragile military security point, and at Kaliningrad border crossings, delivering a major show of force. Vilnius's military strategy is based on a three-layered deep defense doctrine that will erode and wear down the enemy over kilometers rather than a single fragile line. The most dangerous hot contact zone from the border to the first 5 kilometers has been completely isolated with Dragon's Teeth, impassable tank ditches, bunkers, and booby-trapped minefields ready to be activated. In the second depth zone between 5 and 20 kilometers, pre-calculated firing positions for mobile howitzer units, heavy machine gun nests, and reinforced trench lines are located. The third security line beyond 20 kilometers is built entirely on infrastructure denial strategy, planned around the demolition of bridges and the pre-placed explosives to crater highways. Even if Russian armored forces miraculously breach the first 2 lines, they will be left on their own in an impassable terrain with blown bridges and roads full of massive craters. As if this geographic and logistical nightmare were not enough, the German Army's heavy armored brigade, to be permanently stationed in Lithuania, will stand ready to launch direct counterattacks against any force trying to breach these lines. In short, this uninterrupted defense chain created by the 3 Baltic states through military engineering, digital intelligence, and high technology buries Russia's scenario of swallowing the Baltics in a few days with a rapid operation into history. Moreover, a German-Dutch joint military corps has been assigned as headquarters command directly for Estonian and Latvian defense, so that all these complex defense systems can be managed flawlessly from a single center. Thanks to this historic step, NATO's reaction time and order transmission speed to the front have been reduced to levels never seen before. In the event of an armed conflict, political hesitations and slow bureaucratic obstacles will disappear instantly, and heavily armed NATO rapid reaction forces, numbering in the tens of thousands, will be shifted to these regions immediately. The Baltic defense doctrine, which used to be built on luring the enemy in and wearing them down with guerrilla warfare inside, has now been completely updated to crushing the enemy at the very first meter of the border. This enormous logistical effort, engineering marvels, and tactical field preparations send an extremely clear, extremely harsh, and indisputable message to the Russian military command in Moscow. The Baltic region has completely ceased to be an undefended land piece, lacking geographic depth, that could be easily taken over in a short time with armored units, as in the old Soviet days. So, what do you think about this? We look forward to your comments. To make long journeys more enjoyable, we also welcome you to Spotify, where we present our video content. TGN presents